have a studio audience and they're raring to go, and I've got my part because we're going to speak about schoolish kind of things. This is a pile of some of the textbooks. We're starting to collect textbooks here. Feel free to send yours in. We're starting to do research on all of them and find the stories that are printed in our textbooks and then compare them to what the truth is. And it is shocking. I have seen a lot of things in my life. I mean, I'm an alcoholic. Trust me, I have stories. But the one thing that has shocked me more than anything else is reading history. Reading history. You will start to read history, and if you, as Jefferson said, question with boldness even the very existence of God, if you really start to question and you start to read, you will start to slip into a zone where you think, okay, wait a minute, one of these is really wrong. You've been taught one lie, I think, your whole life. As I started my search for answers, through book after book after book, it became apparent that the history we're being taught isn't always right, or most times it just isn't the complete history, and so it makes it entirely inaccurate. Sometimes it's because of, somebody who was lazy, or a lazy media that didn't care to find the real answers. Sometimes it's because people do see things through a different prism. That's why you can have two people that witness a car accident, but they'll say something else, something different, each of them. That is natural. But the problems that we have with our history many times is malicious, progressive intent. Progressives have been changing history for about 100 years. They knew they had to separate us from our history to be able to separate us from our Constitution and God. When you look at the complete pictures of some of the most revered figures in history, when you look at the complete picture, all of a sudden you're shocked. Every time we do this, how many have seen the Founding Fridays? Okay, you've watched them. How many of you have looked at an episode and been a little hacked off at the end because you're like, wait a minute, that's kind of an important piece of history? Have you? You have? You've watched it, and yeah. It is, our history is being stolen from us. I saw a poll that came out, I don't know, a week or two ago about, the best presidents in history of America. FDR, number one. In the top 10, always, Wilson. Wilson and FDR, they did more to destroy the Constitution than practically any other president or all other presidents, present president excluded, combined. FDR, Wilson, both used emergency and war to justify just running around the Constitution. FDR ran for a third and fourth term. There's a reason Congress instituted official term limits for the president after FDR died. They didn't want him to happen again. Well, how did they love him so much that they had to put term limits on the president? That doesn't make sense. That's because you're not receiving the full picture of FDR. Most of us were never taught about the Depression of 1920. Who knew about the Depression of 1920? Anybody here? Two people. Two people knew about the Depression of 1920. Why don't you know about it? Because the way they fixed it isn't in the progressive playbook, and it led to the Roaring Twenties. How about the near depression of 1946? Has anybody heard about the near depression of 1946? We were about to, yep. Did you learn? You learned it from this program. Okay. Why don't you know about that? Because they cut spending and they lowered taxes. We were never taught about 20 or 1946. We were never taught about Woodrow Wilson. Woodrow Wilson was a racist of the first order. This guy was a spooky, spooky dude. He subverted the Constitution. He locked people up. He invented propaganda. I mean, state-sponsored propaganda. He was the man that Goebbels learned it from. FDR, what do we know about him? Maybe you know that he tried to stack the courts, but you don't really know why or anything else. All you really know is FDR saved us from the Great Depression, and Woodrow Wilson was the champion of the worker. That's because history has been changed. That's why my eyebrows raised when I heard Michelle Obama say that we needed to change our history. What does this mean, America?
As a country. And Barack knows that we are going to have to make sacrifices. We are going to have to change our conversation. We're going to have to change our traditions, our history. We're going to have to move into a different place as a nation to provide the kind of future that we all want desperately for our children.
Why would we have to change our history? Why would we have to change our traditions? I like our traditions. Change our history? Well, as you will see tonight, it's being done. I wonder if changing our history is what we're seeing with the late Senator Robert Byrd. Here's a guy who was in the KKK. He was recruiting people to join. 150 people he convinced to join the KKK. Now people like Bill Clinton and Barack Obama coming out of the woodwork to defend this guy because he was, quote, just trying to get elected. Wait a minute. It's okay to stand with people who are lynching, convince people to go burn a cross in some dude's yard because of the color of their skin because you're just trying to get elected? And yet, conservatives are now being considered racist because they support Arizona's immigration policy. This guy gets a pass for the KKK because he's trying to get elected. Byrd also filibustered against the Civil Rights Act when he was 47 years old. This isn't a youthful indiscretion. Somehow getting a pass, but conservatives can't even say something nice about Strom Thurmond or they get disciplined, just like Trent Lott did. He got thrown out. Look how the New York Times portrayed Thurmond and Byrd. Strom Thurmond, here it is, the headline, New York Times. Strom Thurmond, foe of integration, dies at 100. Same paper, New York Times, on the death of KKK member and filibuster of the civil rights movement, Robert Byrd. Robert C. Byrd, a pillar of the Senate, dies at 92. It's interesting to me that both obituaries were written by the same person, Adam Clymer. How could he see those two people so differently? You see, you have to go beyond what the news tells you. You have to go beyond what the politicians tell you. You have to go beyond what I tell you. You have to come to your own conclusions about our history. With facts. Read original sources whenever you can. I'm convinced when you see the original words of people like Margaret Sanger or George Washington, when you see the facts, the evidence is overwhelming. But either way, you've got to look at history because you're not getting the complete truth. Tonight we try to restore history of people who you think, these books will tell you they're heroes and they may be villains. Some people who are villains may actually turn out to be heroes. With us tonight, Larry Schweikart. He is the author of the new book, 7 Events That Made America, America, a great book. Also, he wrote the best-selling Patriots' History of the United States. Every American should own that book in their home. And Burton Folsom Jr. He is the author of another great book. I learned more about FDR in New Deal or Raw Deal, how FDR's economic legacy has damaged America, and the myth of the robber barons. Gentlemen, I want to show you, first of all, because will you both agree, you're historians, will you both agree that it was the progressives that did this for a reason? They've changed our history.
Yes.
Yes, sir, deliberately.
Okay, why?
Well, it's what progressives do. They reshape the past in order to make policies for the present. That's the definition of historicism. That's this thing that's brought over from Germany by the progressives. Let's change history so that we can justify what we want to do in the present.
Okay. This is Understanding by Design, a small learning community, high schools, New York City. This is a drafting template for curriculum unit plan. Okay. This is the curriculum for New York State schools on progressives. Listen to this. American history, subject area, America history, the progressive era. Unit summary, progressivism was a reform movement that sought to correct the evils of big business practices, industrialization, and unsanitary conditions brought about by urbanization. Students will be able to see that the progressive leaders have come from different fields to reform the problems caused by industrialization. Students will also understand that progressive presidents have tried to bring about reforms to improve American society. Students will analyze the extent to which progressivism has impacted the future of the United States. Nowhere here does it talk about the progressives like Walter Lippmann,